So I just finished the original trilogy to Devil May Cry. Um, I decided to do a quick review of each game just to kind of go over my thoughts and just overall, yeah. I do have uh three things that I look forward to and kind of mention when kind of doing my reviews, and that'll be gameplay, soundtrack, and story. I'm not really gonna go over the story itself just because I feel like that's something that people should experience. And I mean, these games are pretty old, so I'm pretty sure anybody watching this already knows the story. Um and yeah, my overall history with Devil May Cry has been pretty much, for the majority, just replaying the demos for Devil May Cry 4 and the reboot on PlayStation 3 back in the day. Um, Other than that, I pretty much only got to experience the original on PlayStation 2 from my older cousin when I was able to play it from their copy. And the furthest I got was when Dante got Alistair after he got stabbed, and that's about it. So that's pretty much my overall experience. I have always wanted to play the series, especially because of the gameplay overall and then just the overall hype. That's like my personal history with it. And yeah, so quickly going over to Devil May Cry, the first one. I think it's a very solid entry for someone who hasn't completely experienced any of the games yet. I think that gameplay wise, it's clunky because of like it's obviously the first entry. It needs to get its bearings, and not everything is gonna work. But to be honest, for the first entry and for my first experience overall, I thought it was good. I had a lot of fun playing it. Um, I do need to mention that I played with a few handicaps that I set for myself, and that was to try to not buy any items, use the base weapons, and I could only use items that I overall grabbed. Like let's say the green orbs and red orbs, which is pretty standard, but like I could only get like held buffs from completing like the blue orbs. If those are any revives, I could only use the ones that I found. Um, Obviously there was a few times where uh that handicap was kind of broken, but I think overall that's kind of what I followed for the playthrough. Yeah, I think the gameplay was very solid overall. Even with the handicaps, it was a difficult game, but very rewarding to play. Pretty much that's all I really have to say for that aspect. The audio was very good. The soundtrack, I think, is really good. It does have like its own atmosphere, even though it seems pretty simple. I feel like it does set the tone for the overall series. The weakest point of the game is obviously the story. I feel like it kind of just like rushes through because again, it's finding its bearings. Although Dante's personality is good and Trish is a cool character, I feel like the story's kind of just like rushed, and at times kind of doesn't make sense. One thing that I kind of can mention about the audio that goes along with the story is that it kind of has like Mega Man X4 level voice acting, which is kind of amusing. It has its charm. It's definitely not where people were like lining up being like, "Oh yeah, this is like one of the greatest series of all times," or "It's gonna be like one of the greatest series of all times." I am gonna mention that I played all of these games on normal difficulty because I wanted to get the most authentic experience for playing all of these games. I was playing under the guidance of um two of my trusted Devil May Cry experts. I try to play as authentic to my own play style and also what I felt was the right play style to have in these games. But I think as I said, that overall, even with kind of like the issues of like the camera kind of fighting me, which I believe adds its charm as well. You're trying to fight like bosses that are kicking your ass, but at the same time, the camera is just not working with you. I feel like that adds difficulty and charm to it. And I think it's overall a rewarding experience. I gave the game a 10 out of 10, and I still agree with that. So, Devil May Cry first entry, 10 out of 10. Now, heading over to Devil May Cry 2, I feel like it kind of im- it is an improvement overall. Graphics, I would say slightly improvement, and gameplay it improved a lot. It feels a little bit more, I guess, smoother would be the word, but a lot of its faults is the story. Dante literally becomes a little bit more tame, and the story overall isn't that intriguing. I mean, the first one, like, it had its charm, but the second one just kind of like gets rid of all of that and just kind of strips it to like its bare bones. And to be honest, I kind of don't really even remember most of it anymore. The overall atmosphere also doesn't feel that engaging. I actually got kind of bored within like the first few hours of playing the game. The gameplay was fun, but the story wasn't that interesting. The enemies weren't that interesting. And I feel like that's kind of what took it down for me. I did hear prior for years that Devil May Cry 2 wasn't like the best in the series, and I could see why. It's just not really an improvement of the series, and you could pretty much beat the game with just shooting everything. That's pretty much how I played it. I actually didn't really struggle, and I played it on normal mode. For the most part, I don't remember struggling at all, and just ended up shooting everything most of the time, just because it did a fair amount of damage, especially with the devil trigger. Oh, that was another thing that I didn't mention in the first Devil May Cry is that I tried avoiding using devil trigger as much as possible. In this case, it was kind of the same, but it did feel like a good damage boost for Devil May Cry 2. I just mainly stuck to the guns because it just kind of seemed not really worth using any other forms of combat. It didn't feel like it really pushed for it. Maybe it did. I'm not sure. Just because to me it felt like it really wanted you to shoot. And that's pretty much the approach that I did for the most part. The audio was alright. It does have some bangers, but to be honest, I don't remember the audio that well either. As I mentioned, the story was like alright as well. I only played Dante's side, which was like a very short game because it's split into two halves, two characters, but my DMC experts advised me to only stick to the Dante stuff because the other story didn't really add anything. There's a lot that you could do in each of these games, but I mainly stuck to the main story. And yeah, it was a very short game. Um, I gave it a 7 out of 10, and do I still agree with that? With those factors, I believe that it still holds true. And now going on to the bread and butter of the series, which is Devil May Cry 3. This is the game that pretty much won everybody over. I'm assuming it's the game that most people experience that love the series till this day. Obviously, the die-hard Devil May Cry fans that started with the first one have loved the series since. But I feel like DMC3 might be the one where a lot of the younger people that are now older grew to love the series. And with both games in its catalog already, this is the definition of um a sequel. It's an improvement on everything, gameplay, story. The story overall is really well done. Um Probably the most engaging that it's been for all three games, and it actually has good pacing, it's developed well, and you get very attached to the characters. Audio, the soundtrack is amazing. A lot of the memorable songs are in this game. Um, the voice acting is really good, and Virgil is voiced by, I believe it's the Quantum Ranger. Forgive me, I haven't mentioned it in so long, so I don't really remember the official title, but everyone did a good job. Um, and the gameplay, it's the best that it's been, considering the fact that story-wise, it's a prequel to the previous two games. Chronologically, it takes place before the first two. It's the best in the series, and it does everything right. And it is the most difficult from the series so far. This is the game that actually broke most of my handicaps that I have set for myself, because I actually lasted like 6 hours on one boss because I just refused to have heals and just a lot of inventory. It's very challenging, very rewarding, and overall a very fun experience. So I give DMC3 overall a 10 out of 10, and I do agree with that rating that I have originally set. It is probably my favorite game in the series so far, just because it improves on everything that the first two games did. Right? It still has the challenges, and it has the hardest difficulty out of it, so it makes it the most rewarding. And I believe it is the best entry so far for anyone who hasn't played the series to still play. I played all of these games on the PlayStation 4 port of the HD collection, and it was pretty good. I didn't have any issues with the game at all. I do want to mention that from the top of my memory, that the third one had like an audio bug every now and then, where like it would kind of shit itself, but I'm not sure if that was just on my end or if it was like my headset. But that was like the only issue besides the camera work, but that's part of the gameplay and part of the charm. So I don't really count that. That's kind of like my own personal thing. Would I recommend this series to anybody who hasn't tried it? I would. It is a very good series. There's ways that you could play. You could play it chronologically from the third to the first, second. You could play it the way that I feel like you would appreciate the series, which is the way it originally came out, which is the first, second, third. If I was to recommend one game from the whole series, it would just be the third. Um, it's a very good series, and it's been around for a good reason. And yeah, those are my overall thoughts. Um, the next time you see me for my review, it'll be for Devil May Cry 4 Special Edition, the PS4 version. Um, so yeah, thanks for watching, and see you on the next one.